Welcome in. Let's let everybody roll into the show. Let me know if it's working okay. Facebook, we got a good enough feed. DBAP to start the show. You can go get these shirts. I think we just have a few left, honestly. I said I was going to make them limited edition. We've sold a decent amount of them, a lot, actually. But if you want your own version of this shirt, you can definitely go grab it. Lots to talk about today. Let's let everybody roll in. When we hit 1,000, I'll be officially off and running. And we will discuss. Thank you for the feedback. I love you guys. Go buy the shirt, outkickgear.com. And we will be off and rolling. Thank you for the feedback on this morning's show about wedding DJs. If you're not listening to the show, you're wasting your life. 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern. Sirius XM channel 83, 240 affiliate stations nationwide. And you will be glad that you listened indeed. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome into Outkick, the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis, and there was a ton of news that broke earlier today. We got word that our boy Steve Sarkisian, erstwhile offensive coordinator of the Alabama Crimson Tide, was leaving to replace Kyle Shanahan with the Atlanta Falcons. And that, my friends, means that Alabama now has an open offensive coordinator position. Immediately, the question becomes, who is going to be the next offensive coordinator at Alabama? I would say this. Obviously, Mark Helfrich's name is going to get tossed around. Mike Locksley, who's there, going to be the co-offensive coordinator in theory. I would go hire Chip Kelly if I were Nick Saban. I think it makes the most sense. I think you've got the Jalen Hurts factor. Chip Kelly would fit really well with Jalen Hurts. You've got the new quarterback coming out of Hawaii. Refresh my memory, or did Chip Kelly have a really good quarterback from Hawaii? Might be the greatest quarterback ever to play the game. I think his name is, wait for it, Marcus Mariota. Yeah, I think so. He had pretty good success with a Hawaiian quarterback before. Plus, if you're Chip Kelly and you decide that you don't want to sit out this year, this is your opportunity to go into the SEC, get an early look at the competition, figure out how you're going to go into the SEC East and dominate when Tennessee fires Butch Jones and hires Chip Kelly to replace him. That is why I think it would make a lot of sense. Now, if you're Nick Saban, I think there's a couple of factors about hiring Chip Kelly. One, you could find yourself for a third straight year having to deal with, if you make the playoffs, a head coach who has accepted a job at another school. Kirby Smart coached Alabama's defense while also being the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs. Lane Kiffin tried to coach FAU while also being the head coach of the Alabama offense. That did not work out very well. Sark came in for one game and immediately leaves. This now means that Nick Saban has been the ultimate redemption tour for offensive coordinators. Let me give you a name. Let me give you a name that some of you may think is crazy, that I think could be crazy like a fox. We have seen Nick Saban redeem Lane Kiffin. We have seen Nick Saban now redeem Steve Sarkisian. Both of those guys came in with harmed resumes based on what they had done as head coaches. And I think a name that's worth considering, Derek Dooley. And some of you are going to say it's crazy. Some of you are going to say it's crazy. But Derek Dooley, I think, could come in at Alabama and do a really good job as offensive coordinator. He's worked for Nick Saban for 7 years. They have a good relationship. We know already that Dooley is pretty good on the offensive side of the ball. He's plugged in with the latest offensive pyrotechnics because he's been the wide receivers coach at Dallas for the last couple of years. Derek Dooley could come in, help you with recruiting as a recruiting coordinator like he did before. I'm telling you, if you're going to redeem a guy, Dooley's still young. He works his ass off. You know that he works well with you because he's got one of the longest tenures as an assistant coach of all time. I'm just saying it's not as crazy as going out and hiring Lane Kiffin after he was fired from USC. It's not as crazy as going out and hiring Steve Sarkisian after he was a drunk and got kicked to the curb by USC. Dooley, in his third year at Tennessee, had the highest scoring offense in the history of the program. I think 9 of the 11 guys that were on the offense have played in the NFL. Just tossing it out there. If you want another redemption project, the reaction to me tells me that it's a brilliant move. Remember, Saban plays chess. He doesn't play checkers. And if you want a guy who knows the SEC and knows everybody in it and is honestly ready to be redeemed and would take the ass chewings on the sideline and would show up and work his ass off and knows ball well and coached for you for 7 years, I'm just tossing it out there. I'm the only person saying it, but I could be crazy like a fox. Just tossing it out there. Just tossing it out there as a potential name. Now, I think certainly Mark Helfrich and Chip Kelly will get a lot of attention, but why not Derek Dooley if Saban's going to continue his redemption tour? Now, the reality is that Saban's going to have a lot of great options because the offensive talent is so good at Alabama. They're going to be outstanding on offense again next year. I'll take questions about this. I was very surprised that Sarkisian left for the NFL. I didn't see or hear any rumors at all about this. Quite an impressive comeback for Steve Sarkisian from not even being in coaching to having accepted a job at Fox in September. Think about this now. He was the Fox studio analyst in September. They announced him. I think I broke the news, remember. I broke the news that Steve Sarkisian was going to go to Alabama the week after. I think I broke it during the USC game, that he was going to start as an offensive assistant at Alabama. They didn't want to announce him before the USC game. So he comes in there, Lane Kiffin heads out, Alabama's beautiful succession plan is correct and set up, and Sark takes over, coaches one game in the national title, and then bails and takes over at Atlanta. That's a pretty big step. Because when you're an offensive coordinator with a quarterback like Matt Ryan, if he does well for a couple of years there, then Sark could be a head coach in the NFL. Pretty wild to think about. So that is an incredibly impressive situation there for Steve Sarkisian. I'll take questions on the Alabama offensive coordinator position right now. Questions. Your wife is a banger. That's the wrong your, but yes, my wife is very hot. Thank you. If you had any doubts about that, you should have followed me on Snapchat. You would have seen how hot she was during the Taylor Swift concert. I definitely outkicked my coverage. Fortunately, my sons look like my wife. All of our good-looking genes have all of her good-looking genes overcame my mediocre-looking genes in the genetic code, and I'm very happy about that. Yes, my wife is a former NFL cheerleader for the Titans. All right, questions. Thoughts on the legality, but I've got big stories to talk about here. I'm not going to get into the legality of the Muslim ban here. These are questions about Alabama's offensive coordinator, Alabama's coordinator position. Thank you. I occasionally get to have sex because I'm a married man. It doesn't seem to be a lot of questions about the Alabama offensive coordinator job, so I'm going to float that out there. Chip Kelly, Mark Helfrich, and I will say Derek Dooley. Just keep an eye on him. I'm kind of curious whether or not Nick Saban might reach out and be intrigued by that possibility. Okay, a lot of times I like to take you into the inner workings of how stories happen. And I feel like I'm somewhat uniquely qualified because obviously I write pretty much every day. I do a 3-hour daily radio show. I do this show on Facebook. I do this show on Periscope. Thank you for watching. It later turns into a podcast, all of those things, okay? And as part of that, I'm constantly paying attention to what the big stories are, right? Because I have to be able to talk about whatever the big story is, so I'm plugged in. And so I got to give credit for this to somebody else, though. One of the reasons I like to have a public email, and I don't have time to respond to everything, but you guys have seen, I've tweeted out my inbox before. I literally read every single email that comes in. Now, I can't respond to them because that's all I would do is sit around and read emails all day. But early this morning, I got a good email from, let's see where he is. Disappointed. This is from a guy named Keith. This is a guy named Keith. And he said this is an email from a reader Keith. And obviously the anonymous mailbag is up today as well. And you guys should feel comfortable checking this out. Keith emails me. This is his email. A couple of weeks ago, you discussed the ridiculousness of the Grayson Allen coverage. ESPN discussed on every talk show whether or not he potentially pushed a Florida State coach by watching the replay in slow motion. It was kept as one of their lead stories all morning on the main ESPN page and discussed ad nauseum on every talk show they have. Last night in the Bulls-Kings game, DeMarcus Cousins and Matt Barnes did shove the Bulls assistant coach, and both received technical fouls during the game for it. Both players have a history of, quote, playing with a lot of emotion, being hot-headed, which is similar to Grayson Allen. ESPN did have a video up on their main page, not a lead story by any means, and I haven't heard a single talk show discuss it today. What's the difference between Cousins, Barnes, and Allen? Same exact situations, with the exception being that the two NBA players 100% pushed the assistant coach, and Allen was heavily reviewed for potentially shoving an assistant coach while making a play on the ball. And by the way, that assistant coach put out a statement that included ESPN in it where he said that Grayson Allen had not intentionally shoved him. You have your apples to apples comparison to finally drive home your stance on how biased ESPN is, and I haven't seen anything on Outkick covering it or your Twitter. I'm assuming this means you didn't cover it on Outkick Radio as well. This is why I like having a public email address. I am always willing to acknowledge that I might miss stories, I might miss angles. I'm always examining whether I'm being fair, whether my goal to be the most impartial man, maybe in all of media, but certainly in all of sports media, is apparent, and this is totally right. He's totally right. Grayson Allen and the coverage that ESPN gave over to him after the tripping was entirely predicated on the idea that when he tripped that player at Elon, he had previously tripped two guys before. And so everybody at ESPN would say, well, he's got a pattern and a history, so that's why the tripping against Elon was such a big story. That's why we demanded that he be suspended. That's why it was literally the lead story on ESPN all day long. Okay? What is fascinating about this is we saw a definite intentional push of an assistant coach by two professional basketball players who make tens of millions of dollars a year, Boogie Cousins and Matt Barnes, and all we've heard about it is crickets. Now, I'm sure it's just a coincidence that the two NBA players happen to be black and that Grayson Allen happens to be white. I'm sure that's just a coincidence, that it's not 100% the reason why ESPN decided to make Grayson Allen public enemy number one, the white guy from Duke, and lets the two black NBA players with an at least as equal, if not much more substantial history of on-court antics slide on shoving an assistant coach, but they make the lead story Grayson Allen potentially shoving an assistant coach for Florida State. Now, you can't justify this based on audience size. More people watch the Kings-Bulls game than watch the Duke against Elon or Duke against Florida State. I'm asking you guys right now, how in the world, if you are editorial at ESPN, can you justify Grayson Allen potentially running into a Florida State assistant coach, which you don't even know is intentional, as a lead story on your program, and you don't even cover Boogie Cousins and Matt Barnes intentionally shoving a Chicago Bulls coach? We're talking about major markets. Chicago, last I checked, is the third largest city in America. The Bulls are a pretty big name brand team. Boogie Cousins is a huge superstar in the world of basketball, the best center in the NBA, and he shoves an assistant coach, and it's getting no coverage at all. No talking heads. Nobody's sitting around demanding that Cousins be suspended, that Matt Barnes be suspended, talking about how out of control they are, asking the question of why whoever the heck the head coach of the Sacramento Kings isn't able to rein him in, isn't suspending him. Why do you think there's no coverage? Why do they not have analysts sitting down psychoanalyzing Boogie Cousins and Matt Barnes like they psychoanalyze Grayson Allen? Why is that coverage totally different? And I'll tell you, ESPN has made a categorical decision that white men are bad. And white men behaving badly fulfills their liberal worldview, and they so desperately want it to be true that they're thirsty for any controversy they can find, and they treat Grayson Allen fundamentally different than they treat any other basketball player. That's the truth. I want you guys, I'm going to sit right now, I want you to make an argument for why these two situations should not be treated the exact same. First of all, I don't think the Grayson Allen story is a story, right? I've said before, I didn't cover the tripping. It was a game against Elon. It wasn't a big deal. I was sitting doing a 3-hour morning radio show and I looked up and saw that it was the lead story on ESPN and I couldn't believe it. But if you decide that Grayson Allen tripping a guy is a lead story, and then Grayson Allen potentially running into a coach against Florida State while chasing a ball out of bounds is a lead story, then certainly you have to cover two major NBA stars shoving an assistant coach in the NBA in the third largest market in America and treat it as a substantial story, right? Tell me how that's not the case. Tell me why these are not different, why these stories are being treated categorically in a different context, other than the race. other than the race, other than Grayson Allen being a white guy. And I made this argument before. I said if Grayson Allen was a black guy playing for Kentucky, first of all, he's not even good enough for people to know. Secondly, we wouldn't even know how many trippings he had been involved in. It's only because Grayson Allen is a white guy at Duke. That's 100% the truth. That's 100% the truth. Somebody give me an example. Same thing with Pac-Man Jones. Pac-Man Jones, the backseat of the car, says he hopes the police officer dies. We're in a highly fraught, contentious relationship between police and minority groups. Not a story. Pac-Man Jones motherfucks the guy, calls him every name in the book. ESPN never plays the video. If that were a white player in the back of the car saying negative things to a black player, or if it was a police officer of any race saying anything remotely similar to Pac-Man Jones, it's the lead story on ESPN, and we don't stop hearing about it for weeks. This is where I'm asking you guys to use your brains. ESPN has a defined narrative in place. If what happens fulfills their already pre-existing narrative, then they run with it. If it challenges the pre-existing narrative, then they don't run with it. They want Grayson Allen to be bad because he's a white guy. They don't want to cover Boogie Cousins and Matt Barnes being bad because they're black guys. Exact same situation. Literally the exact same situation, except the Boogie Cousins and Matt Barnes situation we know is 100% intentional. They intentionally shoved an assistant coach, and nobody's talking about it on ESPN. Nobody. So my job, I think, is to make you guys think, to open up your minds, to say, I'm not going to be a sheep. I'm not just going to listen to whatever the news, the mainstream media wants to regurgitate and put out there. I'm going to actually use your brain. And that's what I'm asking you guys to do. Try to figure out why stories become stories, not why sheep follow whatever story ESPN wants to feed them. See, I'm an aggressive news reader. I look at stories. That's how I said that the Missouri stuff was crap. That's how I said that the Ryan Lochte story was crap. That's why if I'd been covering things aggressively back during Duke lacrosse, I would have said it was total crap. ESPN has a narrative. I get called right wing because I'm the one who's calling it straight down the middle. I'm the most honest person in sports media. And the sports media is so left wing now that I seem like the right wing. I am a 5 on the scale of 1 to 10 when it comes to where is your bias. I am squarely in the middle, calling it exactly as I see it. I'm like an umpire standing behind the plate, calling balls and strikes flawlessly. And all I'm asking you to do is follow me down that path and pay attention. Pay attention to what's going on. Understand how the sausage is made. The sports media is not objectively calling balls and strikes. They want stories to be in a certain direction, and when they're not, they ignore them. When they fulfill their pre-existing narrative, they go after them. That's the truth. Share this show with your friends. Say, I don't know, are you listening to me? Are you listening to the way that Clay wants you to pay attention to the sports media and the political media and everybody? I'm not asking you to buy anything directly. I'm offering you opportunities right now to say why you disagree with me right now. But there's no distinction. There should be no distinction in the way that Grayson Allen is being covered and the way Boogie Cousins and Matt Barnes. In fact, Matt Barnes and Boogie Cousins should be being covered in a much more aggressive fashion if you're going to argue to me that the Grayson Allen story was ever legitimate. That's true. Again, use your brains, watch the sports media aggressively. Don't let them pull the wool over your eyes. Don't let them take advantage of the narrative that they want to advance and throw it upon you without you being able to similarly challenge it. DBAT. Don't be a pussy. Don't be a sheep. Okay, additional stories. Did you see that the Baylor assistant strength coach or whatever the heck he was got hit with a solicitation charge for trying to get a prostitute? Now, one of you had one of the funniest tweets I've seen in a long time, and he said, I wouldn't even jerk off right now if I was a member of the Baylor football program because I would be so scared of all of the controversy that's surrounding him right now. I wouldn't sleep with my wife. I wouldn't do anything that had to do with sex right now. Of all the times that you could choose to go get a prostitute, choosing to go get a prostitute in the middle of this plaintiff's investigation, in the middle of a 1.5-year investigation into inappropriate sexual behavior with Baylor is absurd. Now, you guys, regular listeners of this show, know that I am a libertarian in many senses of the word. That is, I believe that drugs which aren't going to kill you should be legalized. I don't want kids like hitting heroin, but I'm totally fine with like weed being legal, party drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, whatever. If you want to go watch the chain smokers and all that shit going on around the DJing booth makes it more entertaining if you're all fucked up on something, I don't care. As long as you're not going to die, okay? That's the truth of the matter. But here's the deal. I also think that gambling should be legalized, sports gambling and otherwise, and certainly that prostitution should be legalized. I'm of the opinion that if consenting adults want to pay for sex, that's fine. If your talent is screwing people, why shouldn't you be able to sell that? All right? ESPN's talent is fucking people, and they're making millions of dollars, billions of dollars a year. Why in a capitalistic society where your goal should be to be able to sell whatever you want? I sell my ability to talk into a microphone. I sell my ability to talk into this screen. I sell my ability to everybody out there who wants to consume my content for the highest possible dollar figure. Why should somebody not be able to sell their sexual labor for the same amount? I don't get it. I mean, I'm not, gay guy, straight guy, I don't care who you sleep with. I think prostitution should be legal in this country, of age. I think you should aggressively police and make sure that a prostitute is 18 years old. I think you should get a license. I think you should tax it and legalize it. That's my position on this. I don't think we should be in the business of deciding what sins are better than others. I think if somebody wants to pay for sex, they can pay for sex. And let's be honest, we're all paying for sex somehow, all right? Every single man on the planet, and many women as well, are all paying for sex somehow. It just ain't coming out directly in dollars and cents, okay? That's my personal position. Furthermore, I find it absolutely absurd that our tax dollars support people who work all day long pretending to be fake prostitutes to catch people trying to have sex with them. Think about how absurd this is. My hard-earned tax dollars are going to some vice cop in Nashville to sit at a bar in a short skirt and try to get a drunk dude to pay her for sex so she can arrest him. This boggles my mind. How is that? If you have to decide who is more honest, the prostitute who's charging for sex or the person who went to school to become a fake prostitute and entrap people who want to pay for sex, that's like the worst job in America. What do you do for a living? Oh, I pretend to be a prostitute and I arrest guys who try to have sex with me. How do our tax dollars go to support that? How do we spend money for people to have real life jobs and get benefits and health care coverage and everything else so they can be fake prostitutes and bus dudes? I just can't get my mind wrapped around it. With all the crime going on in the world, we are charging people with crimes that they would otherwise not commit unless our tax dollars were paying girls to go sit at bars and try to pick up dudes to have sex with them and then ask them for money. You tell me that the more honest profession is not straight up prostitution than the one where you pretend to be a prostitute. I can't believe that we do this for a living and that job exists. My position on all of it, legalize it and tax it. So, while I don't appreciate the stupidity of a Baylor coach in Waco deciding to pay for sex, I will say, in a positive light, at least they're moving in the right direction where now he's doing something that's just illegal but doesn't necessarily harm anyone else, as opposed to sexual assault, which has been Baylor's issue going forward. Again, 18 years old and up, if you want to sell sex, whether you're a male or a female, then sell it. There's a reason why there's a huge prostitution demand. There's the reason why it's the oldest profession in the world, all right? Because there's a lot of demand for sex in this country that isn't being fulfilled. If somebody wants to sell their labor on sex for the highest possible price, I'm all for it, just like I'm for selling the highest possible price of anything else. We're all selling out our labor. Why do we randomly exclude sex as a labor that we can't sell, and we only exclude it when it's being sold to an individual and only one individual is being paid? Because remember, you can sell sex and make a movie that 1 million people watch and it's perfectly legal, which is why my back of the envelope business model that could make a ton of sense is, why can't men pay women for sex, have it videotaped, and then argue that they were just making a porno movie? Wouldn't that defeat every single prostitution law in the country? if I started a business and it was like Outkick the sex, right? And all you did was show up in a room. We had a cameraman there. The cameraman left. The camera kept recording. At the end of the sex act, he handed you over a copy of your tape. Wouldn't you then have just made a porn? Wouldn't you then have just made a porn, and therefore it's not prostitution because you're paying not for the sex act itself, but for her performance in your porno movie? Tell me why that isn't genius. Tell me why, other than the fact that I've got too many businesses already, I could not create the first illegal prostitution business where I had a camera in the room, I had whatever girl you wanted to pay for sex, or, let's be honest, I'm a feminist, whatever dude you wanted to pay for sex if you're a girl. And by the way, my wife would be fine if you pay me enough money. I'll sleep with you if you're a hot chick. Here's the deal. You videotape it, you make a copy of it, it's a porno movie, and you hand it right off to the guy there. Bang, prostitution doesn't exist. Now, people out there get mad, they get triggered, they get microaggressed. Tell me why I'm not the ultimate feminist. Tell me why I am not the ultimate feminist on earth when I am saying I want women to be able to sell their labor for the highest possible margin. If it's true that we actually have a wage gap in this country, I think I could fucking solve it overnight if women started being able to sell their sex for as much as they wanted to. Because men are going to get paid like 5 cents on the dollar, and women are going to get paid like $500 on the dollar, right? There'd be a huge demand because there's a lot more dudes who would pay for sex with hot chicks than there are women who would pay for sex with hot chicks, with hot dudes. If women are paying for sex for hot chicks, I want to see that too. Why is that not going to solve the wage gap? Again, I am a feminist, huge feminist here. And I believe that women shouldn't be protected by the law. We shouldn't be creating fake prostitutes. We should be allowing women to sell their sex for as much money as they possibly want to, just like we let lawyers sell their rates for as much money as they want to, just like doctors and dentists and architects and radio show hosts can all sell their labor for the highest possible margin. If everybody wants to fuck you, why shouldn't you be able to charge them as much money as possible to fuck them? I don't know. Again, ESPN's been fucking people for billions of dollars for years. Why can't we do the same? I want to tell you about my friends at 30A Cottages. I go down to 30A to the beach every single year. I'm going to go down for 2 weeks. I'm going to go down for 2 weeks, and I'm going to be on the beach, literally on the beach, looking out at the beautiful sand from my mansion on the beach. And you know who's hooking me up? It's 30A Cottages. Go to 30acottages.com. Why would you go stay in a condo? Why would you stay in a hotel room when you can have a mansion on the best beach in the entire United States? It's 30acottages.com. That's the number 30acottages.com. Go look at all of their incredible homes that you could be staying in for your beach vacation. I'm telling you, I've been to virtually every good beach in the country, and the 30A beaches all along from Gulf Shores all the way down to Panama City are the best beaches in the United States. Go there, get hooked up. You'll be glad that you did. 30acottages.com, and you can get hooked up right now. You can get hooked up right now. If you use the code OUTKICK, you get 5% off, and given what some of these cottages can cost, that can save you a pretty penny. Again, go to 30acottages.com, and if you're watching me right now and you're thinking, my God, I love this guy, Clay Travis. What can I do to make his life better? Well, you can go buy a DBAP shirt. Go buy your own DBAP shirt at OutkickGear.com, and you can get them shipped to you, and you might be as sexy as me. Probably not, but you could potentially be as sexy as me. All right, here is my final thought. Did you see where Lena Trump went on the Howard Stern show? Lena Dunham. It would be amazing if Donald Trump wouldn't marry Lena Dunham. Come on, he's not crazy. Lena Dunham went on the Howard Stern show and said she had lost a tremendous amount of weight because she'd been so depressed since Donald Trump won the election. Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen Lena Dunham. She should be on her knees thanking God that Lena Dunham is right now losing weight. She should be thanking God that Donald Trump is the president because he is making her look better and better, somewhat better and better. And so I absolutely love this. Donald Trump not only trying to make America great again, but he's trying to make fat chicks thin again. I don't know about you, but I would vote for any president who was on top of that. I've said this for a long time. You know, we wouldn't have a healthcare crisis in this country if fat people just weren't fat. Like, people won't say it because they're like, oh, it's fat shaming and everything else. All of our healthcare crisis in the country would disappear if fat people just weren't fat. Like it's like politically incorrect to say it, but like 90% of our healthcare costs are because fat people are just fat. Like if you just weren't fat, like we would have no healthcare crisis in this country. I'm not even kidding about that. Almost like the vast majority of our health crisis is based on obesity or obesity-related illnesses. If fat people just weren't fat, then we would make America great again. So I hope that Donald Trump is triggering a lot of fat chicks out there to lose weight like Lena Dunham and make America great again. And by make America great again, I mean save money on health care, increase our national savings rate, go ahead and make everybody's health insurance safer than it otherwise would. That's exactly right. I hate to just like boil things down, but I used to say on my 3HL show, I used to say I always want to bullet point that bitch. Bullet point BPTB. Bullet point that bitch. All right? I used to say it all the time. I'd go on, and I still say it in my life right now. I'm a busy dude. All right? I don't need you to tell me like a long ass story. I don't need like I'll say it to my wife all the time. I need bullet points here. I need bullet points. What did our kid do? What do you need from me? Just hit me with like the details. I don't need anything. Bullet point that bitch. BPTB. Bullet point that bitch. And I try to like make simple ideas that are easy to grasp that would make the country better. DBAP, bullet point that bitch. All right, bullet point that bitch. Same thing. In America today, if we didn't have fat people, there would be no health crisis. All right, that's number one. Number two, if you graduate from high school and you don't have a kid before the age of 25, you won't be poor. Like, these are not complicated issues, right? Everybody's out there like, oh, it's hard to distill issues to their essence. We could make America great again if fat people didn't exist and if you graduated from high school and nobody had a kid before the age of 25. Like, I almost think we should have universal birth control for everybody before the age of 25. If you graduate from high school, ain't that hard, all right? There are a whole lot of really dumb people who graduate from high school. You know them, I know them. It's almost impossible not to graduate from high school if you just show up. You just go to school and sit there and do the absolute minimum amount of work, you will graduate, okay? Second, don't have a kid until 25. I'm not saying don't have sex. I'm saying just don't have a kid until you're 25 years old. I guarantee you, this is statistically proven, our poverty rate would go to zero. Our poverty rate would go to zero if people would just graduate from high school and not have kids before the age of 25. Simple facts. I'm trying to make the world a better place. Those are simple facts. All right, questions. Questions out there from you guys. We ran through a lot, and I will answer them. What kind of car do I drive? A Mercedes-Benz, and then we have a Lincoln Navigator. I'm thinking about getting a new car. I'm not a car guy. Like some people are car guys. Like I'd rather have a big house, But I'm thinking about getting a Range with an Outkick license plate just to piss people off. So that might happen at some point soon. But I'm not a car guy, really. I mean, I don't really care what I drive. I spend all my money on Twitter stock and mansions. When did I buy my first bra? 13. Had to learn how to take it off. Am I coming to the Masters this year? Probably not. Why is Howard Stern a PC bitch now? I don't know. Tough evolution. Alshon or Mike Williams? I like Mike Williams upside better. DBAP license plate? Yes, that would be great. Would Chip Kelly getting yelled at by Saban would in fact be must-see television? The Wizards, I think, could be. I'm not sold on the Cavs winning the Eastern Conference. I watched that game last night. Cavs won 140-135. LeBron James hit the crazy fadeaway three into the bench. I'm not sold on the Cavs. I'm really not. I'm curious to see what's going to happen before the NBA trade deadline, but I think they're overrated. Who will win the East? I have no idea. I don't think it's going to matter because I think the Warriors are winning the NBA title in a pretty substantial way. College spring break location, I'll give you one that's a little bit off the beaten path. I think the number one college spring break location, if you're able to get on an airplane, should be San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'll tell you why. San Juan, Puerto Rico, a lot of daily flights now out of Florida, out of the East Coast, everywhere else. I love San Juan. Remember, I lived in the Caribbean for a couple of years, so I feel like I know all over the place. Here's my pitch on San Juan. Perfect weather, casino gambling, 18 years old is the age, and drinking age is 18. So if you are a college kid, you can go to Puerto Rico, you can stay in an awesome hotel on the beach with spectacular Caribbean beaches, you can go into a casino with full casino gambling at 18 years old, and you can legally drink all in Puerto Rico. It should be the number one spring break destination in America for people that are actually getting on airplanes. I don't know why it isn't. I think it's because a lot of people haven't been there before. In Puerto Rico, the legal drinking age is 18, legal gambling age is 18, and the beaches are phenomenal. So I would say if I were a college kid and you can afford to go, I know people go to Cancun and stuff like that, and I've been to Cancun, I went there during spring break, but I think the most fun would be Puerto Rico. I just think it's a fabulous place, beaches are extraordinary, and that would be awesome. Also, 38 Cottages, great place to go for spring break, 38cottages.com. February, March, and April, you get 5% off if you use the code Outkick. But it might not be 100% warm. If you're going to drive somewhere, 38 Cottages is where you could go, get a mansion on the beach, get hooked up, have an incredible time. Don't be fat, get ready for spring break. Yes, indeed. All right, you boys and girls have been fantastic. I will be back tomorrow, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern on Outkick the Coverage, my morning radio show on Fox, Sirius XM, Channel 83, foxsportsradio.com for the podcast. You can stream it at iHeartRadio, over 240 affiliate stations nationwide. I love all of you. I appreciate your support. Share this with your friends. Bullet point that bitch, DBAP. Lots to say, lots to gain. I'm trying to make the world a better place, one day at a time. I'm Clay Travis, and this has been Outkick the Coverage.